Hello and welcome to a makeup tutorial series for the game called Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is an open world MMORPG completely free on all devices, your laptop, your computer, your tablet, on your browser, on your phone, on your browser. You can play it on your browser as well. It's incredible, really. You can start playing this game right now. I also lied about it being an MMORPG, so if you started playing this game on your browser, completely free, without any issues, I apologize. Alright, but no, really, this game is a dungeon crawler, if you couldn't tell from the title, because you're illiterate. It's a this is a dungeon crawler roguelike, and it takes heavy inspiration from the original game Rogue, which all roguelike take inspiration from. But if you're one of those few people who actually do play Rogue and always thought to yourself, man, I would really enjoy this game if it wasn't so trash, well, I'm really glad to announce that this is the perfect game for you. Well, anyways, if I did my editing properly, you can see just how accessible this game is. I went from my browser to the website to the French server simply because je ne sais pas français, and now we're here. Actually, I don't think this is the French server in the background. At least it shouldn't be. Well, any longer. We went there for a few seconds. Now, I understand what we're currently seeing may be a bit confusing, and thus I decided to bring in a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our industry icon, Stuart Little. The main reason Stuart Little is here is basically because this is a pre-recorded video. I did live commentary, but I didn't really like the commentary so much, and thus I decided I want to have a way to illustrate what I'm talking about, and just to avoid confusion, because sometimes you'll see me highlight something completely different, or my mouse will be somewhere else, and Stuart Little is just to help with that issue. Alright, so let's walk through what we're seeing. On the left side of the screen, you have messages from the developers, you have the crawl blog, and such, and the change log, and things like that. At the very bottom of the screen, you have the users who are currently on a run. You can spectate users. You could just click on their names and you automatically start spectating them. To the right of that, you have the versions of the game, and then you have their levels. That's what XL stands for. You have the characters. The first two letters of the characters is their race. The second, or race or species, is what they refer to it as. And the second two letters are their class or background. So, for example, we have a Merfolk Elementalist. It's MF for Merfolk, and Ice Elementalist, my bad, IE. Then you have the location they're currently at in that run. Then you have the amount of turns that passed, the timer, the god choice they selected, how long they've been idle. I have no clue what the specs mean, so don't ask me. And finally, the milestone. What's the most recent accomplishment they made? Finally, in the top right, we have where you log into an account and or register an account. All you need to register an account is a username and password. Underneath the Play Now button, we have different versions of the game. Just click on the version you want to play on. To the right of that, we have the custom seeds. To the right of that, we have community-made maps. And depending on the server you're on, there's tutorials, but not all servers have them. Alright, so this is version 0.28. This is the character creator. At the very bottom, you can see the controls. However, the only thing we care about is the Minotaur. The Minotaur is the strongest beginner-friendly race/species, and thus, that's the one we're picking. So after picking your race, you'll get an option to choose your background. As you may notice, some of these backgrounds are faded out. That doesn't mean you can't pick them. That means they're not recommended. In this tutorial video, we use Monk. I don't recommend picking Monk. I'm just familiar enough with the game to actually select Monk. I highly recommend playing as Berserker, if not playing as Fighter. In this tutorial video, you'll see me die on Monk, and I'll have it in the background probably. The reason why I highly recommend you pick Fighter and or Berserker is simply because they're very powerful starting background. I more so recommend Berserker simply because it helps introduce how gods work and just gives you a taste of how powerful your god choice can be. Earlier on in this video, I had a clip of me killing an ogre playing as a Berserker, while in this actual video, I happen to encounter an ogre and I choose to run away simply because how powerful ogres can be. Before we begin, let's talk about the goal of the game. The goal of the game is to get the Orbazot. It's incredibly difficult to actually beat this game. I've only managed to beat it 3 times. There's like extra challenges you can do on this side, but just 3 simple 3-rune runs. I beat it twice with Demon Spawn and once with Formicide. Alright, the last thing we need to do is pick a weapon. I completely forgot about this step, but the weapon's choice doesn't matter too much. Just keep in mind the numbers to the right. I'll explain those later on. And bam, we're in. Alright, so the top left corner is a hotbar selection bar thingamajigger. The bottom left is a text box. The top right is our character stats and information. such as our name, my username, our current title, which doesn't matter, our race, a piety meter, which I'll explain later, our health, our magic, our AC stands for armor class, EV, our evasion, not effort value, SH, shield, our level, XL, 1, how close we are to the next level. Currently we're at 0% in the progress bar. The amount of noise we make, which is a feature mechanic in this game, I'll explain. A is the weapon we have currently equipped. We have our strength, our intelligence, our dexterity, the location we're currently at, Dungeon 1, the time frame. You can move around using the arrow keys, or you use numpad. I recommend using numpad over arrow keys, or even better yet, you can just use your mouse to move around. Woo! Alright, so let's talk about what we're currently seeing. In the very top, you can see a little portal thing. That's the entrance and exit to a dungeon. In the very middle is us, the character. That's our Minotaur guy. You have a door next to the entrance to the dungeon. You could open it by walking into it. You can hit Shift O to open it. You can hit Shift C to close it. And now I'm going to let past me explain how turns work in this game. I should probably mention right here is the amount of time it takes me to do an action. For example, me moving right here takes one turn. Me moving all the way down here took 7 turns. Certain actions can obviously take place in the decimals. Certain actions can take even longer. Some actions take 2 turns. Some actions take 0.3 turns. You know, if we hit Shift 2 or the at key, I don't know what key that is. We can see our certain information. We get some information. We can see our movement speed is average. That means our movement speed is around 1. As you can see, boom, 1 turn. Wow. And more importantly, we can see our attack delay. Attack delay is basically attack speed. If we attack something right now, if we hit Control plus any of the numpad keys besides 5, we do an attack. And as we can see, it took us 1.2 turns, which is weird because it says 1.1 here. So I don't know. So as we walk around, we'll leave these yellow footprints. It's just saying the path we took. More importantly, however, if we hit the O key, we'll activate Auto Explore. Basically, we'll just explore around until we find something of relevance. Here we can see some gold and a cloak. Anything with a green border around it means we'll automatically pick it up as soon as we walk over it. The cloak will increase our AC, thus making it harder for enemies to hit us. Not all races can wear all armor pieces. As a Minotaur, we can wear the cloak. However, we can't wear helmets. To wear the cloak, we can either walk up to it and hit the G key to pick it up, and then hit the I key to open our inventory, select it, and then hit W to wear it. Or we could just walk over it and hit Shift W and select it to wear it. Alright, so a few things. If we look at the bottom right, we see a staircase which leads down. Generally, each floor has 3 staircases down and 3 staircases up. We also have our first enemy, the giant cockroach here. It's currently sleeping. We're going to back up and shout at it because I wanted to showcase how noise work, where you could wake up enemies by shouting. We're going to hit the T key, and then we're going to hit the T key again to shout. Alright, as you can see, if we look at the noise meter, it's currently yellow. That's because we generated a lot of noise. The cockroach took 1 step forward, and now we're going to begin combat by hitting the S key, which essentially waits a turn. So the cockroach will take another step forward, in which case we're going to click on him, and he's going to perish. Exhilarating stuff, really. Anyways, if we hit Shift A, we can see our characteristics. You can click on any of these to get a short description, or to get a description about them and what do they do. I'm not going to read them. You can read them for yourself. I'm going to choose to pick up that sling for really no reason. And then I'm going to walk around a bit, and then I'm going to hit Shift 5, which will show you our full character page, essentially. Our resistances, our other stats, how long it takes to restore HP. And then I'm going to hit the 5 key again, but not Shift this time. I'm just going to hit the 5 key to rest until something happens. Either I full restore HP, or an enemy shows up, or mana, whatever. Alright, so in the following clip, you're going to see a dagger on the floor, you're going to see a goblin, you're going to see a giant cockroach, and a quokka. I'm going to proceed to try to bait all these enemies to the left and kill them. The reason I try to bait them to the left instead of just charging directly at them is simply because if I fight them over there in this unexplored area, there's a chance the noise generated from our fight will attract other enemies, or other enemies just wandering around will see us fighting and join in on the fray. And while we're strong as a Minotaur, this is a very good habit to get into. It's a very helpful survival technique taught by Bear Grylls himself. So, you know, we're really very helpful. Now, an important thing to know about this fight is that I fought them in a corridor. The reason for this is that it minimizes the damage potential the enemies could do to me. You always want to try to get fights in corridors, as you can only get attacked from the 2 angles, rather opposed to the usual 8 angles if you were to fight in the wide open. This is very, very helpful, especially in the late game. I made a mistake, and I accidentally got the attention of 2 ball pythons. Oh, well, this one doesn't necessarily know where I'm at. That's what the question mark means. It's sort of wandering. But this one, however, doesn't know where I'm at. So we're going to back up. Boop, boop, boop. Wait a turn. And we're going to attack it. And we're going to attack it. Bam! Check it out. We killed it. And more importantly, we got an axe skill increased to level 4. What that means, if we hit the M key, and this is where things get really complex. Wow, look at that. Alright, let me explain what we're looking at. This looks really complex and scary. It looks like the freaking PoE skill tree. It's not that complex or scary, just like the PoE skill tree. This is your stat page. This is where all your stats go. Whenever you get any form of XP from killing a monster or whatever it is, your XP gets deviated into these stats. For example, if our axe skill is currently getting trained at, let's say, 15%, if we get 100 XP, 15% of the XP is going to get deviated into that category, and that category can level up. As we saw, I leveled up my axe skill to level 4. As you can see, there's an amplitude stat. If you look to the right side, numbers +1, +2, -1, +1, whatever, any of those numbers, that essentially is just a bonus. Think of it like a multiplier for the amount of XP we receive in that category. Once more, this looks complex and scary for a new player. The game makes it super easy for new players in the fact that there's an auto mode and a manual mode. By default, it's on auto. So what auto mode entails is the prioritization of certain stats. For example, right now our character is currently what the community refers to as a melee brute. We don't throw things, we don't cast spells, we don't use wands, we don't really sneak around, we don't do anything like that. We just attack people with the axe. The game will notice that, decide not to train those stats, and instead prioritize our axe stat and our fighting stat, because that's what we're doing. We're just smacking people with the axe, getting hit, thus training our fighting, which in turn means more HP, more hit rate. Now, if you're wondering what the allocation is for a stat, it's essentially the brown number near the stat itself. That tells you what percentage of XP is getting allocated there. One thing that's very important to know is that just because we're on auto mode doesn't mean that we can't influence how stats are allocated. If we hit a corresponding key to a stat, for example, fighting, we could transform that plus near the A key, or next to fighting, between fighting and A, we can transform that plus into an asterisk, meaning that game will prioritize leveling up that stat. If we hit that key again, that asterisk will transform into a minus, meaning the game will not put any XP into that stat. And if we hit the key again, that minus will transform into an A, and thus the game has free roll of whether or not XP is allocated to said stat. Now, one nice thing about this game is that anytime, if you ever have to go anywhere, you could just hit Shift S and it'll ask if you want to save and quit, in which case you hit Shift Y and bam, you're out of there. Let's talk about auto combat real quick. At any time, you can just hit the tab key and your character will automatically walk. You can just spam the tab key and your character will automatically walk towards the closest enemy and just start wailing on them. Just be a bit careful because it's very easy to get lost in the sauce, so to say, and just go wild until you basically just end up killing yourself. Another important thing is that you can hit the X key and you'll start entering like an examination mode, in which case you could hover over something and then hit the V key to actually see what that thing you're wondering about is. Alright, once you're finished with the floor, you hit Shift period when standing over a staircase to go down, and you can hit Shift comma to go up a staircase. I don't know what keys these are called. I just know they're called crocodile beaks in Australia. This also brings us to a very important mechanic in this game, is that we can do something called stair dancing. So if we go down, we can see this goblin was over here, but now he's over here. While we were moving around, he also moves around. More importantly, he will follow us upstairs, go up the stairs, and bring this hobgoblin with us, which is very helpful to keep us safe, because nothing else is up here. We just finished exploring this whole level, so there's no other enemies around. Here we found a faded altar, so if we hit Control O, we can see all the different types of gods there are in this game. Gods provide many gameplay beneficial effects, as well. They really help to shape up the type of run you're doing. If we hit Shift 6, well, there you go. Normally this would be where you have your Uh, this will be the page for the god, what benefits it provides, and such and such. But unfortunately, because we don't have a god we're worshiping right now, we don't get any information when we hit shift six, or I guess the other one too. So faded altars are unique in the fact that they can technically be any god, I believe. There might be a few couple of restrictions, but they also provide an extra bonus in the form of they give you bonus piety. Piety is this little meter over here. Currently, it's faded away because we're currently not worshiping anything. But as a monk, you get 2 bonus piety with the first god you choose. I believe that bonus is canceled out with the faded altar. But you do get a bonus for whatever god you get from the faded altar. But essentially, it gives you a random god. So this ogre has a red. Well, first of all, he has a red hitbox around him. But more importantly, he has a red text or red name. That means he's incredibly high level and he's incredibly scary for us. So, but luckily he's sleeping, and this is why you want to train your stealth stat. Unfortunately, I'm not training my stealth stat, but for reasons like this, in situations where this occurs, where you happen to walk into a really powerful enemy, you have a chance for them not to detect you immediately and go after you. Our stealth stat's super low, unfortunately, but we got really lucky that he's not chasing us. So we're gonna step out of the way. If an enemy can't see you, they won't attack you. So let's say you counter an enemy with range. If you can't see the enemy can't see you. That's how the game works. So this ogre will only wake up if we make a lot of noise. As long as we stay away from his line of sight. As long as we can't see him, he can't see us, and he won't wake up unless there's noise involved. And that's why the noise feature is very important, so we have to be very careful around here. So one thing we can do is we can hit X, we can go hover over this ogre, and then hit E. This will include an exclusion zone. Is all these X's around the place? These are an exclusion. So we can't walk into these by default. If we click on it, the game will try to prevent you from doing so. We can hit Shift N to deny the fact that we want to walk into that. If we really do want to walk into that, we can hit Shift Y. But we don't want to walk into this. So this will prevent, if we hit O to activate Auto Explore, this will prevent Auto Exploring from going anywhere near this ogre, which is very huge for us. Very important. Alright, I currently have stones quiver right now. I simply just picked up some random stones and they should automatically get quivered. You could quiver whatever item you want by hitting Shift Q, and then you can fire / throw / shoot whatever item you currently have quiver by hitting by just hitting F, mousing over it, or using the arrow keys over the target / location you want to throw it at, and just hitting F again. Another thing I want to mention is scrolls and or potions. They're unidentified at the start of the run. They're randomized. And you're more likely to encounter scrolls of identification than any other scrolls. I think they're the most common. And it's very important that you read or drink a potion in a safe place if you don't know what that potion or scroll does, simply because they can be very detrimental and can completely screw you over if they're really bad. I don't often drink unidentified potions unless I'm in a really bad spot. I usually just wait until I can find a scroll of identification to figure out what kind of potion I have, simply because usually potions have worse effects than that of scrolls. Alright, so a couple things I want to bring up is that you could occasionally encounter weapons that are enchanted. So you could maybe find it like a +3 hand axe or whatever. Or you can find it like a +1 or +0 hand axe of flaming. And those are usually pretty good. Well, maybe not a hand axe specifically. But if you want to change weapons or whatever, if you want to wield a different weapon, just hit W and then select the weapon from the list. Another thing is that occasionally you will encounter named enemies, and these are basically unique enemies you might encounter once a run every once in a while. They usually have a special gimmick to them. You could figure that out by just hitting the X key, running your mouse over them, and hitting V to figure out what they do. For example, in the background footage, you probably saw Robin there. Robin has the ability to buff up other goblins that are near him, or just buff up goblins that he can see, or you can see, one or the other. And he has the ability to throw goblins at you, which is really powerful because they get behind you, they get in your way, they start flanking you, you know. One thing that's worth noting is that enemies can carry enchanted weapons and or enchanted equipment. Sometimes they even carry potions. In the background footage, I believe that Noel carried an enchanted halberd. It's also worth noting how to use wands in case you find one. In my case, in the video, you'll see me using a wand of polymorph to transform that Noel so I could kill him easily without having to deal with the enchanted weapon. Wands and such fall under the evocation stat. It's a very helpful stat to train, even if you don't plan on investing in it fully. It's just very nice to get useful tools like polymorph or paralysis or mind burst, things like that. If you find a ring or amulet, you can hit Shift P to equip said item. In the background footage, there should be 4 altars for 4 different gods. We're currently looking at Evelyn. If you hit Shift period, you could enter that god's panel by standing over the altar and hitting Shift period. You can join the god from there. Basically, different gods provide different effects. You can hit Shift X. You can hit Shift 6 while looking at that god panel to get see what kind of powers they provide, and see what they would like for you to do in order to increase their piety with them. If you hit Shift 6 again, you could see the type of wrath that may occur. Certain gods don't like it when you do certain things. For example, Trog doesn't like it when you cast spells, and usually you don't want to incur the wrath because most of the time it's just going to end up getting you killed. The last thing worth mentioning about gods is that you don't get access to all their abilities right away. Depending on how much piety you have, you could use certain abilities. Once you join a god and you want to use one of their abilities, simply just hit the A key and select whatever ability you want to use. The last thing I forgot to mention is the invocation stat. Invocation is the ability to channel your god's power. Essentially, most gods use it, not all of it, but most gods use invocation, and the higher invocation stat, the better chances you have of successfully casting your god's power, or the longer duration, or how powerful it is, stuff like that. That's the end of this video. If you really enjoyed it, I would appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. You know how it goes. Thank you for watching. This video is like super scuffed. That's because it's the first time I ever made such a video. It's the first time I ever done such a thing. So I appreciate your feedback.